It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation.
Whoa, whoa, whoa to those on the earth. This is Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we are at home in Studio G1. Yes, there's a G1 and a 2 now because he's got 2. Tom Horn is recording his presentation and some other things in studio today. Some stuff we can't tell you about yet. So he kicked us out.
Upcoming programs from Skywatch TV that you're not going to want to miss.
We get kicked out of there a lot anymore.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell us something?
Well, you guys are doing fine at home. Just don't bother. Okay, darn.
I know. It was like, I have to stay home. Oh.
Yeah.
By the way, the new studio is coming along. Boy, howdy. We went to see it last week, and there are just a few things left to do. And when did the matching?
That is going on right now. There is a $15,000 matching grant challenge that was offered by a businessman who wants to remain unnamed. So we cannot tell you who it is, but up to
Anonymous is his name.
Anonymous. Up to $15,000 he will match. So your donation to help us finish the studio for a limited time will go twice as far, and you can do that at skywatchtv.com/donate. And make sure that you stipulate that it's for the new studio. The carpeting is in, the soundproofing is in, the set has been assembled on the stage. The desk is now in shipment, the new desk.
Which is incredible, and it's going to be big enough to hold, 6 people?
High tech, boy, it looks like something from the Starship Enterprise or something. But what we need yet, and this is the expensive stuff, the lights, the cameras, and the mixing equipment, the stuff that puts it all together. So that is the final piece of the puzzle. So again, you can find out more at skywatchtv.com. But hopefully, before too much longer, we will be in there, and that studio will also be able to accommodate studio audiences from time to time.
I know. Wouldn't that be exciting? Although I have to say that I still like working from home.
Yeah. The studio audience we have here are the butterflies and hummingbirds outside the window, which is pretty peaceful.
It's very, very peaceful. Well, speaking of peaceful, we look at the book of Revelation, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but I get a lot of peace from reading the book of Revelation. And why is that? I mean, it's filled with horrible things, filled with monsters and judgments constantly. It's filled with terrible things that are coming to the earth, and they are coming very soon. The peace for me comes from knowing God's still got it all in control, and that He thought enough of you and me to tell us in advance what we could expect. This allows us to use this time of, well, frankly, a time when many people are frightened because of COVID-19 and the way the economy has taken a hit. It gives us an opportunity to say, as you said inside Friday, we have been told in advance to expect things like COVID-19 to happen. But there is a promise from God Almighty that He has this in control. So let us tell you what else may be coming.
That's well said. And again, as we've discussed before, we believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, and the period that we're referring to now, everything after that 6th seal in Revelation chapter, Revelation 4 with the 6th seal? Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, Revelation 6
Revelation
is where
6,
the
right?
seals
Six
start to open.
That's right. Revelation 6, the sixth seal. We believe that's when the church is pulled out of harm's way, as it were.
Yes.
So,
Now, if you don't agree with us on that, look, that's fine.
yeah,
We want you to make up your own mind on when you believe the rapture is going to happen. We do believe that there is a rapture and it is coming, and then his church will be taken out of the way, because the book of Daniel is very clear about those 70 weeks. That last week, the 70th week, is all about the Jews. It is all about Israel. So there's really no reason for us to be here. We are the mystery. We're the mysterious body of believers that occur between the end of the 69th week and the beginning of the 70th. So we believe the 70th week has not yet begun, and that we will be raptured before he begins that week. If you choose to place the rapture elsewhere, if you place it before the first seal is ever opened, we understand that. We're not insisting you believe our way.
mm-hmm.
I think regardless, you can find, you can get a lot of information out of our reading of these writers, because we look at the spirits behind them. We look at the spirits behind the judgments. We compare this to Exodus, which is what we're in right now, actually, in Gilbert House Fellowship, because
Right.
I think that there are a lot of parallels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the key things to remember about the book of Revelation is that it is not aimed at tormenting those who have placed their faith in Jesus Christ.
No.
That this is judgment being brought upon an unrepentant world, but even more than that, the unrepentant spirits who have
Yes.
rebelled against him. I've been doing some reading of the early church fathers, and I really need to do a deeper study. It's called patristics, the early church fathers, because they lived in a world for the first 3 to 4 centuries after the resurrection that was predominantly pagan and dominated, especially around the Mediterranean, by the religion of the Greeks and the Jews and the Phoenicians, which all originated from the same source.
The church started to deviate with Augustine.
Right. Augustine and John Chrysostom. And so beginning around 400, roughly speaking, that was when we began to de-supernaturalize or de-mythologize Scripture and remove this idea that these angels were, that the gods of the pagans, in other words, were angelic beings who rebelled against God. No, they're just idols, blocks of wood and stone. These people were primitive and ignorant, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they kept sacrificing their children to these blocks.
But they managed to build those pyramids and all those other great buildings.
Right. Now, when you read the early church fathers, they really understood that the gods of Rome, Greece, Phoenicia were these fallen angels who had rebelled. And they write about them quite a lot, the Titans and the giants. They understood the connection between the Rephaim, the Nephilim, and the heroes, the demigods of the Greeks, and so forth. So there's a lot of that in there. And that takes me to something I wanted to follow up on. Last week as we were talking, I something was tickling in the back of my head, and I didn't have enough foresight to flag it before the program. This was when the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and the sun was struck, third of the moon, third of the stars, so that a third of their light was darkened. I remembered a verse from Isaiah, and I couldn't remember the chapter. It's actually Isaiah 24. I put that up on the screen last week.
Oh, that's right. So if you only listen to the program on the podcast, you didn't see it.
But I wanted to bring this up because I read something last night that makes this even more interesting. Isaiah 24, beginning at verse 19, is about the day of the Lord, which is the day of judgment, which culminates at Armageddon and the destruction of the rebel army, which is in large part demonic.
Because this is a long war that began probably before the creation of Adam.
Yes. So Isaiah 24, beginning in verse 19, the earth is utterly broken, the earth is split apart, the earth is violently shaken. This, I think, refers perhaps to the sixth seal. But the word translated here as split apart is only used a couple places in the Bible. One of the other places is where God divided Rahab. This is talking about a divine judgment that's so intense, the earth is literally shaken and split apart. The earth staggers like a drunken man, it sways like a hut, its transgression lies heavy upon it, it falls and will not rise again. On that day, again, that's the key phrase in the Old Testament that signifies day of the Lord. The Lord will punish the host of heaven in heaven and the kings of the earth on the earth. They will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit. They will be shut up in a prison, and after many days they will be punished. The moon will be confounded and the sun ashamed. This is not metaphorical. There were entities, angels, rebel angels, who masqueraded as the god of the sun. In Hebrew, Shemesh. In Babylonian, Akkadian, Shamash. The moon, seen, Yarik. The Lord of hosts reigns on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders. This is the ultimate end of the book of Revelation. Isaiah saw it. But what's interesting is that a scholar analyzing this pointed out that in verse 22, one of the texts found of Isaiah 24 at Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls, actually casts this verse in the past tense. They were gathered together as prisoners in a pit. So could this refer to the watchers, the angels who sinned of Genesis 6?
Possibly, or it may even be a rebellion prior to that.
Perhaps, as we've talked about the rebellion of chaos, Leviathan, Rahab, they were gathered together as prisoners in a pit, the abyss. They were shut up in a prison, and after many days, they will be punished. So again, that's not the predominant reading. It's not the best texts, but the Qumran texts were ancient, certainly much older than the Masoretic Hebrew text, which is what our English translations are based on. And so it's an interesting possibility. Either way, however, it refers to these supernatural rebels who God will punish at Armageddon.
What's the verse there?
Isaiah 24, verse 22. And just, again, I thought that was interesting, especially...
Yeah. It's still future tense in the Septuagint.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to connect that to what we're reading, what we read last week there with the sun and the moon and the stars being struck. The host of heaven and heaven, the sun and the moon, confounded, ashamed, shut up in a pit, and eventually after many days, which again sounds like a description of the punishment given to the watchers.
It does,
The
but you
angel-
notice too, it says he'll be glorified before his elders.
Yes. So fascinating stuff. So let's take a break and then we'll jump forward and we'll start heading toward the actual opening of the pit in Revelation 9.
Okay.
Yeah, Unraveling Revelation continues after this.
COVID-19 has changed everything. Because of the coronavirus, we can't bring the sold-out Defender Conference to Branson this year. So we decided if we can't bring the conference to Branson, we'll bring it to you instead. Skywatch TV's 2020 Defender Conference is going virtual. If you thought you were going to miss out because you couldn't travel to Branson this year or because the conference sold out too quickly, now see and hear world-class speakers, cutting-edge presentations in the comfort of your own home. And to make it better, we're adding new speakers like Steve Quayle and New York Times best-selling author Joel Richardson. And don't miss what Tom Horn says will be his last conference presentation ever. Plus, we'll add all of the presentations from the 2019 Defender Conference, so you're getting two conferences for the price of one. Sign up now, Skywatch TV's 2020 Defender Conference. Virtual, but bigger than ever. It goes live August 27th, 2020. For information and registration, log on to DefenderConference.com. That's DefenderConference.com. Here are the upcoming conferences and events featuring the team from Skywatch TV. For a full list and complete information, log on to skywatchtv.com/schedule or download the free Skywatch TV mobile app for iOS, Android, and Amazon Kindle Fire tablets.
Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. We are talking about, Revelation 8 and one verse.
Yes.
And we're jumping right into 9. So
Oh,
you want to read the one
good
verse in
stuff.
8?
Revelation 8:13. Then I looked and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice as it flew directly overhead, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth at the blasts of the other trumpets that the three angels are about to blow." Now, interestingly, the word angel, the eagle there are some texts, manuscripts that the word, instead of eagle, aetos, reads angelos. I heard an angel crying with a loud voice as it flew directly overhead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because that actually makes more sense.
Yeah. The majority of manuscripts do have the word eagle. A minority of late manuscripts, the word angelos, and the Textus Receptus form of the Greek texts the Greek text follows the latter reading, the angel flying overhead.
Right.
as do English translations based on it, like the King James and the New King James. So just being aware there that this may be an angelic being rather than an eagle flying overhead that's crying out, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And again, that does seem to make sense.
It does. Sorry, I'm trying to switch this over so I'm looking, because I actually look at this on a parallel. Yeah, it does say an angel flying. I thought it had in the KJV.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting there that it doesn't really change the meaning of the verse at all. Just a copyist's error, somebody misreading a character in the Greek as their a scribe was copying one manuscript to another.
I would argue in favor of angel because it's all angels that are doing this. But if it was originally the Holy Spirit inspired John to write down eagle, I don't think that this is your common earth eagle.
No, again, we're dealing with supernatural entities here. So Revelation 9, now this gets into some really interesting stuff. We're probably going to spend at least a couple of weeks here on this one.
Oh, easily.
And the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit.
Okay, stop. Star.
That is definitely an angel.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that is specific or made explicit here in just a moment. And the Greek word translated bottomless pit is abyss.
Yes.
So in the Greek mind here, we're looking at Tartarus.
Mm-hmm.
And Tartarus, as we discussed previously, is separate from Hades.
Very separate from Hades.
Right. Hades was where the run-of-the-mill dead went. Tartarus was reserved for supernatural threats that had to be confined so they didn't destroy everything.
Right.
So the Titans were there.
Yes.
Typhon was there in the Greek mind, the chaos monster.
Yes.
And so you had, and there were some other entities there.
And any entities that were, buddying up with Typhon.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they don't influence the world. No, they still influence the world somehow using avatars. They're pretty powerful beings.
Yes.
It's just that they cannot physically access the earth on their own.
This would likely be the place that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we went and read from First Enoch. And Enoch was shown these mountains burning.
Yes.
That was what Enoch saw. And that was the understanding of the apostles, because as we see in 2 Peter 2, verse 4, the English translation usually says the angels that sinned were thrust down to hell, but the Greek word is tartarau. So it's not Hades, it is Tartarus. Again, a different place altogether. The Greeks believed as far below Hades as the earth was below heaven.
But here's an obvious question. We've got a star, presumably an angel, falling from heaven to earth. Is this an angel that's been dispatched, or does the word fallen, as in implying that this is an angel that has indeed fallen?
That's a really good question. The Greek word is definitely the verb that means to fall. So,
but it may mean nothing more than I've gone from one, domain to another. But, you would think a different word would be used instead of fallen. An angel flies. It doesn't fall.
Yeah, that is an interesting distinction there. And that's why there's some question as to whether this is a loyal angel who's doing a job that he's been assigned to do, or if this is one who's been tossed out. But you would assume
and when was he tossed out? Because picture this. We've talked about this before, but in case you've forgotten, when you are at the throne of God, you are not necessarily part of our time stream anymore. We're locked in a time stream here. But God's throne is outside of that. So John may have been looking at a panorama view of all sorts of things occurring. He may have been shown this is essentially a movie screen showing something that had happened in the past.
Trying to understand something happening outside of time with a consciousness that was created to exist inside of time.
Exactly. An angel that had previously fallen, who happened to be one who knew how to open up this pit. The fact that he doesn't open it until the last 7 years of time, as we know it, the world as we know it, Teotihuacan, that he doesn't do it is because the Lord has not allowed him to.
Well, exactly. And it's possible that he wasn't even given the key until it was time.
They
Because
may
again,
go up there and steal it.
I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and he was given the key. So
Okay.
this may not have been, okay, here's the key. Now go open the abyss. It's perhaps a fallen angel who was already on the earth.
Except if you want to get really picky,
Okay.
star falls from heaven to earth, and he was given the key. When was he given the key?
That's my point.
In heaven or on earth?
Right. We don't
In
know.
the Red Wing saga, they're looking for the key.
Ah, okay.
The key exists somewhere on earth. He just hasn't found it yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a question, and we don't have a definitive answer for that. So just bear in mind that this may be a loyal angel said, okay, here's the key. Now it's time for you to go do this. An angel fallen from heaven, a rebel who's now given a key, said, okay, now's your time to come back. As we discussed previously, the 5-month period that these things get mirrors the 5 months that Noah and his family were in the ark during the flood.
Yes, and what did Jesus say to us? As it was in the,
In the
days of
Noah.
Noah and in the days of Lot. Later
Yes.
on, he says Lot as well. So you really need to understand those two time periods. When did this happen? We don't know. It will happen. There's no doubt about that. We just don't know when. But the reason it's a little ambiguous, God of armies, Lord
Yes.
of armies, Yahweh of armies, best general ever.
Not divulging the plan. Verse 2, he opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, and from the shaft rose smoke like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft.
So
Then,
the sun's getting hit again.
yeah.
You don't see the moon in here.
No, that's true. You don't. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. Now, this is interesting, and we'll probably dig deeper into this. I know that there have been naturalistic interpretations of this that want to see these as some sort of military hardware, like attack helicopters.
Or tanks or something.
Right. But we view these as the entities that are now in the abyss. In fact, Sharon wrote about this in our forthcoming book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, that these entities, as you'll see in their description, appear to be some sort of chimeric entity. Yes, they look like locusts, but they've got other aspects to them. The only thing you can really say about them consistently is that they are theriomorphic,
Yes.
part human, part animal. And when we suggest that the titans of Greek religion, the old gods of the Greeks, are what's locked up in the abyss, it's like, well, I thought those were just like humans. Well, that's based on the Greek artists' representations of the old gods, the titans. Bear in mind that the oldest Greek writing that we have goes back to about the time of Isaiah, so about the 7th century BC. Whereas if these things were locked up during the flood of Noah, that was probably 3,000 or 4,000 years before Hesiod and Homer were writing Greek poetry.
Yes, but the images of their kids, the giants, they have snake legs.
Right. Yeah, in fact, in one of the
That
church
famous
fathers,
frieze of the Gigantomonkey.
right, from the great altar of Zeus, which was taken from Pergamum, and set up in Berlin just before Hitler rose to power. Yeah, in fact, one of the early church
Coincidence.
fathers,
Pure coincidence.
yeah, one of the early church fathers.
Hitler actually shows up in the Red Wing saga. Did you know that?
Oh no!
Oh, yes.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was born in 1889.
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. We're not coincidence theorists, by the way. One of the early church fathers wrote and described the giants who were the progeny of the Titans as dragon-footed. So serpentine in that respect.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: when you look at the Mesopotamian idea of the Watchers, called the Apkallu, there were 3 different types. One was like a humanoid with wings. One was like a humanoid with like the head of a falcon or a hawk or a raptor, again with wings. And then the third was the fish-cloaked guy, often mistakenly identified as the god Dagon or a priest of Dagon. No, he was one of the ancient Mesopotamian Apkallu, who a scholar named Amar Anus conclusively showed was the Mesopotamian that the Jews understood that those watchers, or that the Apkallu of Mesopotamia were the watchers of their religion. And they are theriomorphic, part human, part animal.
You know, the word that is translated power, exousia, is an interesting word because it can mean a number of things. One thing it can mean is the liberty to do as one pleases. But it also refers to authority over mankind.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to bring that up. I looked that up once and I was really intrigued by that because it seems to imply some sort of political authority or hierarchical authority.
Governmental, yeah.
But the scorpions of the earth, what kind of power, physical, mental, political power would scorpions of the earth exercise?
Boy, that's a really good question because I see the unseen realm as kingdoms that we just don't perceive. There are kings and some even queens because these entities can appear male or female because they do not have gender in heaven. So when they leave heaven and they come here, they choose a gender or they choose to be fluid like Inanna. But they are rulers, monarchs of some kind, and they have a hierarchy below them, a pyramid structure. And at the bottom are the demons.
Yeah. And that makes me wonder if what's being referred to here as these scorpions is some type of supernatural entity again. And now it could be that the obvious explanation is the simple reading of it, that the power, the authority that they're given is to inflict a lot of pain. Because as we'll read, and we're going to have to get to it next week, but as we continue reading, we'll see that that's what they do. They're given that authority for 5 months. But scorpion men. In Mesopotamia, there was this idea of the scorpion men who were a sort of chimeric demonic entity that appeared in some of their cosmology. Don't have time to really break down their story right here, but we can dig more into that next week. Don't know that that's what was in John's mind. Again, the simple reading may be the correct one here, that the power that these entities were given, these theriomorphic watchers, titans, Apkallu coming out of the abyss.
It's like the Scorpion King in that Mummy 2 movie.
Yes. Really bad CGI.
Really bad CGI.
Yeah, it was better in the follow-up movie that was about the Scorpion King. But
True.
But yeah, that there may be more here, I guess is our point, than most of us have been taught. And certainly we don't think the naturalistic explanation is the correct one. We're not looking at Apache helicopters here. We're looking at some sort of supernatural entities. Again, the clue being, as we see here, that they're given 5 months, which echoes the 5 months that they had to watch as their children were destroyed by the flood of Noah. So, yeah, like I said, we're probably going to spend several weeks just on this section of Revelation 9.
Well, I think we should, but we want you to study this at home on your own. And if you read it aloud to your kids or have them read it to you or your grandkids, I think as a family, you're going to discover that there are things in there that we haven't even found.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, if we can do this, anybody can do this.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for joining us for this. This is Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV.